On December 15th, two cargo tankers, Volgonev 212 and Volgonev 239, sank in the waters of the Kerch Strait during a storm, leading to one of the largest environmental disasters in modern Russian history. I went into detail about this in my previous video 3 days ago. If you haven't seen it, you can check it out here. Today marks the 9th day since the oil spill, and the situation continues to worsen. The only thing that managed to somewhat slow down the onset of catastrophic consequences was the selfless work of volunteers in the first days after the tragedy. Risking their health, thousands of people from all over the country came to the coast of Anapa to shovel oil into bags and rescue birds. They did this against the backdrop of complete indifference to the problem from local and federal authorities. For an entire week there was hardly any equipment, and if it weren't for the volunteers, there would have been complete chaos on the coast.
There is not enough equipment for removal. Not enough tractors, not enough trucks. Equipment is really needed. There will be a storm tonight. All this could go back to the sea. And what do? We pile up these huge fields of these bags of fuel oil, which have been lying in the sun for a while and are leaking. Friends, do you see what is happening? 2.5 tractors for the entire Zhimatinsky Pros.
The authorities once again proved unable to make timely decisions in this critical situation. As usual, they hoped that everything would just blow over on its own. But it didn't blow over. Meanwhile, the oil has already reached the shores of Sochi.
Well, here you go. Golovinka before the tunnel. A nightmare. And they say that it's only just reaching Gelendzhik.
The petroleum products were also moving in the opposite direction. On December 22nd, they were already on the coast of Kerch.
Kerch, December 22nd, we are on the Vershintsev beach. Here a group of volunteers from the administration, students of the local college, technical school came to the coast. Right up to that pipe on the coast, there are emissions of fuel oil, like plasticine, hard lumps. The persistent smell of oil is quite strong. In general, local residents, local services, emergency services are coping. They just found a bird. Ornithologists are needed.
At the same time, the bodies of 8 dolphins were found near Novorossiysk, washed ashore already dead from poisoning by petroleum products. The inaction of the authorities led to severe consequences. People working all day with oil on the coast couldn't even be provided with the necessary respirators and protective suits. Thousands of people put their health at risk, and the consequences for them will still show up after some time.
Guys, I have a huge request. Everyone who takes food from us, please work in respirators or protective masks. Yesterday, a woman was driving Tatiana home on wheels. She is now very poisoned. Please, any courier who is free now, take her to the police station or an ambulance. This is urgent. The woman was very poisoned. He did not even understand this. Only now she got in touch with me. She barely speaks, please.
Also, thousands of people spent hours working in vain. The oil collected in bags was not being removed from the beaches, and at night, during the storm, it was washed back into the sea. Desperate people even recorded a video appeal to the president.
An appeal to the president and the prime minister of the Russian Federation. As you know, a disaster has come to our house. Huge territories of the beautiful sandy beaches of the Anapa and Temryag regions are covered with oil from the tankers that fell apart in the sea. The local authorities do not have the professional resources and technical means to neutralize the consequences of such a large-scale disaster, and are forced to compensate for the lack of attraction of volunteers with shovels. We all need to realize that we are in trouble on an international national scale. It is impossible to raise the main issues of its elimination exclusively to the local authorities.
Meanwhile, the governor of Krasnodar Krai, Veniamin Kondratiev, was hiding from the volunteers and avoiding meetings with them. In the village of Vinogradny, he held a staged meeting with the residents, where they were forbidden to ask tough questions, and the volunteers were completely barred from entering by the Cossacks, under the pretext that there were no free seats in the hall.
There was no sense in it. We were banned from filming and writing. We were driven to a rural administration by two minibuses. I don't know if it was a pharmacy. Maybe there were 50 people. Although we were told that the hall is full, the governor was taken out through the black entrance. In general, everything is clear, everything is exemplary. And before that, when the hall was launched, they said not to ask any questions. In general, not a single volunteer was allowed.
And only on Monday, December 23rd, on the 8th day after the disaster, the Minister of Natural Resources and Ecology, Alexander Kozlov, arrived in Krasnodar Krai. Together with Kondratiev, they organized a showy PR campaign, started traveling along the shores and headquarters, and even brought in an additional 50 units of equipment. However, their actions didn't always lead to improvements, and often it was quite the opposite.
I observe with you what I see with my own eyes. A tractor drives up and picks up sand. The cat tractor is located on the Moshipsin River. The time is today. He takes the sand and pours it into the Kamaz. It's not clear. Maybe it's some new technology to take out the sand. Well, no, there are no bags there. Further on, you can see the technique with dirty sand, with oil. There is no Kamaz there, for some reason. So, this is a very interesting technology.
Now we are watching how this tractor takes and removes a huge layer of sand, 40 centimeters, clean sand. It rakes it into piles and will take it away. Why touch clean sand where there is no fuel oil at all?
Certain issues arise regarding the places for waste disposal and burial. The governor reports on some specialized landfills, but people are posting videos showing bags being buried right on the beach or in some very questionable landfills.
This is the burial place, right on the beach.
And this is the landfill in Kolmskaya Stanitsa, the safety of which raises significant doubts among local residents. What was the government doing for an entire week while an unprecedented ecological disaster was unfolding in the Krasnodar region? They did not introduce a state of emergency, not only of a federal nature, but even of a regional nature. When it was necessary to ring all the alarm bells and urgently mobilize all forces in the first hours after the tankers were sunk, President Putin, during his direct line to the entire country, assured that, according to the words of the regional governor, the situation was under control. They still haven't even localized the oil leak or deployed containment booms off the coast of Crimea and the Krasnodar region. The lack of will, the desire to completely downplay the problem, and the hope that everything would resolve itself have led to catastrophic consequences. All of this could have been avoided, or at least significantly mitigated, if the government had simply fulfilled its direct responsibilities instead of distancing itself from them. When the world's largest environmental organizations are simply kicked out of the country and declared undesirable. When the lion's share of the state's resources and attention are spent on the so-called NWO, and the main interests of the authorities are aimed at cheap populism and enrichment by any means, then there is nothing surprising in such a catastrophe. It will take years to address the environmental consequences, but unfortunately, no lessons will be learned from what has happened. This ecological disaster is a direct result of another disaster, a governmental one. And to resolve it, changes of a completely different nature are needed. For now, all we can do is keep an eye on the situation, talk about it, show self-organization, become volunteers, or help them.